Have you ever heard of places so eerie, so filled with mystery, that governments across the world have tried to hide them from the public? These are places that are not only haunted, but are cloaked in a shroud of secrecy. Whether it's the fear of the unknown or just a deep desire to keep people away, these places exist on the fringes of the world, like forbidden islands, ancient fortresses, and military sites that have kept their sinister stories locked away from the rest of us. Absolutely. Let's dive deeper into each of these haunted places and bring them to life through detailed, story-like narratives. This will help engage the reader and add a sense of immersion and suspense to the chilling tales. 1. The Demon House, Gary, Indiana, USA. It was a cold autumn day when the Johnson family moved into what they thought would be a perfect home in Gary, Indiana. Little did they know, this house would soon transform their lives in ways they couldn't have imagined. At first, the house seemed like any other, with creaky floorboards and walls that had seen better days. But as the days passed, strange occurrences began to happen. The first incident was subtle. Just a feeling, a sense of unease. Mrs. Johnson would often hear faint whispers late at night, but when she turned on the lights, no one was there. Then, things started moving. A vase fell off the mantel, shattering on the floor without any apparent cause. The children would hear footsteps above them when they were alone in the house, and shadows seemed to move in the corners of their eyes. But it wasn't until their son, Timmy, began to change that the family realized they were dealing with something much darker. Timmy would wake up screaming, claiming that someone was trying to grab him in the night. One evening, the family heard strange growling noises coming from the basement, but when they ventured down to investigate, there was nothing, just a cold, oppressive air. Paranormal investigators were called in, and what they discovered was chilling. They believed the house was cursed, the spirit of a malevolent entity lingering within the walls. As if to prove their point, the haunting escalated. Objects were hurled across the room with no explanation. The family was terrorized, but no one could help them, at least not in a way that would give them peace. The local authorities did little to intervene, and when the family fled the house in fear, it was quietly demolished. The government, however, made no official statement on the events, and the house remains a ghostly memory in Gary, Indiana, with whispers about what might still linger on that land. 2. The Aokigahara Forest. Japan. Aokigahara, the suicide forest at the base of Mount Fuji, is a place of both tragic beauty and a heavy atmosphere of despair. Many years ago, a young woman named Yuki decided to take a hike through the forest, hoping for some peace of mind. She had been suffering in silence, overwhelmed by her personal struggles and the weight of a society that never seemed to understand her. As she walked deeper into the forest, she felt an odd sensation that the trees were watching her. The wind whispered in the branches above her, but it wasn't the usual sound of wind rustling. It was as though the forest itself was trying to communicate with her. A faint voice seemed to call her name, but when she turned around, there was no one there. Yuki, growing anxious, quickened her pace. She remembered hearing about Aokigahara's dark history, the countless souls who had come to the forest in their final moments. Some say the spirits of those lost souls wander, trapped in the dense woods, forever unable to rest. As Yuki ventured deeper, the trees seemed to close in around her. The sunlight was no longer visible, and she felt a suffocating presence that made her heart race. Suddenly, a shadowy figure appeared in the distance, a woman, pale and dressed in white, standing motionless. Yuki froze in fear, feeling an overwhelming sense of doom. She could no longer tell if the figure was real or a figment of her imagination, but she knew she had to leave before the forest claimed her, as it had so many others. She managed to escape, but the memory of that day haunted her for years. She never spoke of the figure she saw, or the strange feeling that gripped her in the forest. But for those who dare enter Aokigahara, it's said that the spirits of the lost are always watching, waiting for the next soul to wander too far. 3. The Dyatlov Pass, Russia. In the winter of 1959, 9 hikers set off on an expedition in the remote Ural Mountains, determined to reach the summit of Otorten. They were experienced travelers, well prepared for the harsh conditions. But as they began their journey through the snow-covered landscape, something terrifying happened. Days into the hike, A search party was sent when the hikers didn't return. The searchers found their abandoned tent on the side of the mountain, slashed open from the inside. The hikers had fled into the snow in the dead of night, unprepared for the brutal cold. But that wasn't the only unsettling discovery. The bodies of the hikers were found scattered across the mountain, some missing their eyes, others with severe internal injuries. One even had her tongue removed, and all the bodies were barefoot, despite the freezing temperatures. As authorities attempted to explain the deaths, the theories grew stranger. Some suggested an avalanche had caused the panic and injuries, but there were no signs of snow being displaced. Others claimed that military tests, possibly involving secret weapons, were to blame. But some believed the hikers stumbled upon something much more sinister, something not of this world. The rumors of a supernatural force at Dyatlov Pass have never been fully debunked, and to this day, the mystery remains unsolved. The government, tight-lipped on the matter, closed the case, but the incident is still discussed by those who are fascinated by the unknown. Some say the mountain itself is cursed, and that those who venture too close to the pass are never the same. 4. Pripyat and Chernobyl, Ukraine. In the early hours of April 26, 1986, the people of Pripyat were asleep, unaware that their lives were about to change forever. A few miles away, at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, an explosion would change the course of history. The disaster was catastrophic, spewing radioactive material into the atmosphere and forcing the immediate evacuation of Pripyat. However, when the residents fled, they left everything behind. Belongings, photographs, and even food that was half-eaten. The streets of Pripyat became ghostly, deserted by the very people who had once filled them with life. For decades, the area remained off-limits to the public. As years went by, reports from brave souls who ventured into the area told of strange occurrences. Some claimed they saw flickers of lights in windows, even though the buildings had been abandoned for years. Others spoke of hearing ghostly laughter echoing down the empty streets, as if the spirits of the people who once lived there hadn't truly left. Pripyat was a place of unimaginable horror, but it also became a place of quiet mourning. Some believe the souls of the lost residents still wander the empty streets, forever trapped in the aftermath of the disaster. The government tried to shield the public from the truth, keeping the region under strict control and monitoring the area to prevent any curiosity seekers from uncovering too much. 5. The Island of the Dolls. Mexico, deep in the canals of Xochimilco, Mexico, lies an island so strange it feels like something out of a nightmare. The Island of the Dolls, as it's called, is covered in decaying dolls. Hundreds of them, hanging from trees, perched on fences, and scattered across the ground. It all started when a man named Don Julian Santana discovered a doll floating in the water with no owner in sight. Believing it to be a sign from the spirit of a little girl who had drowned nearby, Don Julian began collecting dolls to honor her. Over the years, his obsession grew, and the dolls became more numerous. He hung them up all over the island, convinced they would protect him from the spirit of the girl. But as time passed, the island began to feel alive. Locals who visited the island spoke of hearing whispers, the dolls' heads turning to follow them, and an overwhelming sense of dread in the air. Some claimed they saw the dolls' eyes blink, or felt them watching from the shadows. The government tried to keep the island off limits to tourists, warning them about the danger of visiting such a place. But that only fueled the curiosity of those who wanted to see the dolls for themselves. No matter how much the authorities tried to bury the mystery, the Island of the Dolls remained a strange, cursed attraction. 6th Body, California, USA. Body was once a thriving gold rush town, full of life and laughter. But when the gold ran out, the people disappeared, leaving the town behind. Now, Bodie stands frozen in time, with its empty houses and abandoned stores, as if the town itself is waiting for its people to return. But there's something eerie about Bodie. As dusk falls, the wind whistles through the cracked windows, and the town feels alive with a presence that doesn't belong. Visitors to the ghost town often report seeing figures moving between the buildings, and some have heard faint voices, as though the town's former residents are still going about their lives. Except they are no longer alive. The California State Park System has made it clear that Bodie is not to be disturbed, yet the air around the town seems to buzz with energy. Some believe that the spirits of the dead still inhabit the town, forever trapped in the place where their hopes and dreams vanished. 7. The Montauk Project, New York, USA. On the eastern tip of Long Island, New York, lies an area so mysterious that it has become the stuff of legend. The Montauk Air Force Station, once a military site, has been the subject of countless conspiracy theories, from mind control experiments to secret government projects involving time travel. It all began in the early 1980s when a group of government scientists supposedly discovered a way to manipulate human consciousness. The experiment, referred to as the Montauk Project, was said to be an effort to create a powerful weapon using psychological techniques. They used innocent civilians, including children, as subjects, with many reports claiming they had been forcibly recruited. However, it wasn't just the human experimentation that haunted the project. It was the strange, unexplainable phenomena that occurred. The area was said to be the site of time distortions, where individuals would report seeing alternate versions of themselves or experiencing flashes of different times. Others claim to have witnessed monstrous creatures manifesting out of thin air, possibly as a result of some kind of rift in time. One chilling account comes from a man named John, who had worked in Montauk before the government shut down the facility. He described one of the scientists vanishing into thin air during a test, and the project's strange, chaotic nature. He claimed that after the shutdown, the U.S. government sealed off the entire area, effectively erasing it from history. While the government maintains that nothing untoward occurred at Montauk, whispers of strange paranormal events persist. Some say the project was far more successful than anyone could have imagined, and far more dangerous than we'll ever know. Today, the site is off limits, and few dare to venture near the abandoned buildings. 8. The Myrtles Plantation, Louisiana, USA. Nestled deep in the swamps of Louisiana lies a plantation with a reputation as one of the most haunted places in America. The Myrtles Plantation is beautiful and historic, with its grandiose, moss-draped oak trees and elegant mansion. But behind its picturesque facade lies a dark, tragic history filled with betrayal, murder, and lost souls. The plantation's eerie reputation stems from the ghost of a slave named Chloe, who is said to haunt the mansion. Legend has it that Chloe was a slave in the 1800s, and she had been having an affair with the plantation owner, William Winter. When Chloe was caught eavesdropping on the family's private conversations, she was punished by having her ear cut off. In her grief and anger, she concocted a plan to poison the Winter family. Chloe poisoned a birthday cake meant for the family, and while it killed 2 of the Winter children, William Winter himself survived. He later died from gunshot wounds during a confrontation with an unknown intruder. The curse was set, and the spirits of the Winter family are said to haunt the mansion to this day. Visitors to the plantation have reported hearing footsteps on the staircase, seeing shadowy figures in the windows, and even feeling cold, unseen hands brush against them. The most chilling phenomenon, however, is the eerie laughter that echoes throughout the house, laughter that seems to come from the very walls themselves. The local government has tried to regulate access to the plantation, limiting the times people can visit, but the hauntings have only drawn more attention to the place. It's said that if you stay too long at the Myrtles Plantation, you might just become one of the spirits who never leave. If you like these real stories, then don't forget to subscribe to the channel.